after 2,000 shots, my brother missed in the net. We both come up to the net, and I said to him sarcastically, it had to be the bottom of the net, you know? And so then we quickly took a bathroom break and came back. There was no doubt, because we only had 2,000 or so shots. There was no doubt we're going to try again, because the record was 24,696. And we went right back at it because the mission wasn't accomplished yet. And we may have still gone at it a third time, but according to the rules of Guinness World Records, when you declare that you're going to set a world record on that day, it doesn't matter if you're sick, you have COVID, you're in the hospital, that day comes and goes. If you do not set the record on that day, there is no excuse.
Thank you for joining me today. I know that your time is pretty critical these days. You're running around, but I want to give you kind of the floor to say who you are, right? Who is Angelo A. Rossetti right now?
The son of Angelina and Angelo, brother to Ettore. He's my identical twin, but yes, I'm 10 minutes older, maybe not 10 minutes wiser. And yeah,
he would love that.
Been a passionate athlete and coach, and now both, and love the sport of tennis, love the sport of pickleball now. They're not mutually exclusive, despite what many people may think.
Yeah.
I'm indebted to tennis. I wouldn't be where I am with pickleball without tennis. So they both mutually coexist and benefit each other for me. And there is the background of a feat that we accomplished on World Mental Health Day, October 10th of 2021. All of the proceeds benefited the Save the Children charity. We raised over $115,000 for that event alone. And thanks to my twin brother, Ettore, who's pictured there with the mustache. That's how you could tell us apart if you don't know us. And
thick mustache.
How I tell people is A, absent mustache. A stands for absent mustache, Angelo. But yeah, that was quite a feat. That was our third world record. We had set 2 previous ones in the sport of tennis, and that was our first pickleball one, and it was the first of its kind, the longest pickleball rally. We did it in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and the Guinness World Records Limited, based in Europe, had set the record for 15,000 consecutive shots without missing. So we finished with 16,046. We knew in advance we were going to set the record. We were quietly confident that that was not an if, but a when, and we knew the date, so we knew it was going to happen. And it did. And I started with a serve. My brother started a return. I moved into the mid-court area, hit a dink from the transition zone, and then my brother, did a dink from there, and we dinked the rest of the way. So it was 16,046 shots. It was 16,044 dinks if you count the longer dinks. So, yeah, and I caught the ball at the end. We had that pre-planned, that because I was the first server and we're identical twins, we weren't going to one-up each other. That's been an ongoing theme for our records, is not one-upping each other. But I start with the serve since I was born first, and then I would end the rally with a catch or an attempted catch. But I was so exhausted after 14 hours and 31 minutes for our first tennis world record on August 9th and 10th of 2008 that it spanned over 2 days, that basically I tried to catch with my left hand, but I'm not left-handed, so I'm already uncoordinated with my left hand for the most part. So I missed the ball. And that's why in the video you see the ball, the fuzzless ball, it's mainly brown. For those of you who are interested, you can go to the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island, but it's part of their permanent exhibits. The balls that we used and the certificate and the counters crazy glued together. 25,944 was that record. But you see the ball, it hit the back tarp or wall, and then you see it in the video rolling as I'm coming up to the net to give my brother a hug. You see the ball rolling. So I was supposed to catch that. So if there was a miss, it was me miscatching the ball.
What did your racket look like and your hands look like after that was done? Like, was your grip just shredded? Like, was there no grip left?
It's fascinating because you never know what everything is going to look like until you actually do it, because you're not going to rehearse for 15 hours. And the grip was fine because I didn't make any grip changes, because besides blowing on my hand or relaxing my grip, I didn't change the grip, because what I've realized is when you do something for 14 and a half hours, your mind does not know for the next shot anything else but that last shot. So you run the risk of a mistake if you do anything differently. That's why we went cross court to cross court. I only hit forehands the entire time.
So I know a little bit about the story, but not all the details. What was like preparing for something like this? Like, what did you have to go through to know that you had to grind through 14, 15 hours of shot after shot after shot after shot?
Yeah, it was challenging, and I'm going to surprise you here. My brother is calling me. I'm putting him on speaker.
You're good.
I
love this guest appearance.
You have a guest appearance. I don't know if you can hear, but Al and I are doing a live broadcast, and we just happen to be talking about the world record, and it's only 50% mine. But Ed, what did your grip and your racket and all of that? What were you thinking when we did the first world record, the tennis world record?
The grip was continental.
Okay. Yeah.
And just had to focus on getting up a return and then getting up to the no volley zone line quickly, which we did in two shots after the serve and the return. And then we had pre-planned forehand to forehand dinks.
Well, we're talking the tennis one. We're talking the tennis one, the very first one.
Sorry.
We'll get to pickleball.
We'll get into pickleball. So for tennis, it was fascinating in that when we practiced the rally, it was forehand to forehand, but I had a Eastern forehand in practice. And for some reason, on game day, I got anxious after the first shot and went to continental, believe it or not, or a hybrid continental Eastern. And I would be hitting basically backspin, and then Angela would be hitting topspin. So it was a true yin and yang moment of the spin rather than both of us hitting top. And that is how I proceeded, hitting basically follow through forehand with continental and underspin.
That wasn't intentional, by the way that you just said that. That was something that started on the fly and you had to adapt to immediately at the start of that 14 hours.
Yes.
That's kind of crazy. So we were just talking about, this is actually perfect that you called. So we were just talking about the preparation up to that. Like, what did you both have to do together in order to prepare for a moment like that, right? Because nobody usually sets out and says, I'm going to hit 14,000, 16,000?
Well, for the tennis record, it was 24,696 was the standing record.
Yeah.
And we did 25,944.
So over 25,000 shots, the average person does not go out and say, hey, let me go do this. So like, what was the preparation in order to battle really mentally through that? Because that's what it is, right? It's a mental grind.
I'll take that one.
Yep.
Unfortunately, our tennis mentor, Scott Wilson, had passed away of ALS at a much too young of an age. And he was one of the first people that really believed that we can be really good coaches, but also be number one in New England in men's open doubles. That was a dream of ours. So when someone, really believes in you and they're not there anymore, you really want to honor their legacy. So we both had come up with the idea of the world record. It was a funny story. I had called my brother, or he called me. Ed, did you call me from the car wash?
From the car wash?
Yeah, I was actually in a waiting room lobby for my emissions for my car, flipping through a Guinness World Record book, and then I called you from there. I don't know if you were at your residence or not, and then I said, we got to do something for Scott, and we're flipping through, and at the same time we came up with the longest volley record. There was a couple of other records in the book, like holding the most tennis balls in one hand, a dog holding the most tennis balls in its mouth. We wanted something that was felt totally epic, and though contrived, it would be unique and memorable, and something that would be a feat of mental and physical endurance. And we arrived at the longest rally.
Yeah, and Al, what happened was when he called me, he said, I got an idea. I have a great idea to honor Scott. And at the same time, you can call it twin power. We both set a world record, and that was the beginning of it. So it had to come from a higher level purpose first, and then you can prepare your mind for it. But if your heart is not in it, your mind is not going to do it.
So realistically, you guys were thinking of something to do that, like you said, was going to be epic, right? You wanted to leave its staple, its stamp in history to some sort. And this is what you guys stumbled upon almost simultaneously at the same time. That's crazy. Do you guys, so side note, a lot of twins talk about this. Do you believe there's some sort of twin telepathy going on with majority of twins? Do you guys believe that you think a little bit differently than the average population when it comes to communicating together?
I don't know if it exists with us. I've seen the stories, the two adopted twins. I just got a book where they find each other later in life, and they have the same color car and type. They live in the same type of neighborhood. Their wives look the same. They have the same number of kids. Is it nature or nurture, right? That's always the debate. With my brother and I, it's more, kind of like knowing a doubles partner in pickleball or tennis. Yeah. We know each other so well since we've been around each other our entire lives that we know how the other person is going to react, think, and believe. So I think it's more of that than anything else. Ed, what do you think on that?
I'm a believer in it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
In that I think when you are a clone of another human being, which identical twins are, the same genetic composition that has split, unlike fraternal twins, which is a simultaneous birth, I think that there is a genetic propensity to think the same way, and thinking the same way is like a wavelength, right? And that's where telepathy, sort of the notion of that, comes from. So I believe it is a bit more than just proximity, spending a lot of time together, which fraternal twins do and could, and other siblings do and could. I think it goes beyond that. And I think that advantage...
We're going to prove it right now. I'm holding up fingers with my right hand. Okay? I'm holding up fingers with my right hand. How many fingers am I holding up?
3.
Oh my God, no way.
So, just saying.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So let me build off of that for a second. So going into the world record, and you guys have volleyed back and forth, let's say for 1,000 balls at some point. Do you believe that deep rooted connection that you guys have together allowed you to stay so connected and seamless in that volley?
One person, one ball, one rally. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So what did that, so building on that, you have to get into some sort of flow state in that sense, right? In order to do that for such a long period of time. What did that state like feel like? I know it's hard to describe sometimes, but like what was going on with you when you were in that moment going back and forth?
So I'll go first, Ed, and then you could go.
Yeah.
And I think my brother is even quoted as saying this in one of the news articles. But you're in mental jail. It's your mind and body want you to quit because you're becoming very uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and you're doing something that you've never done before, and yet you need to keep going. So for me, partway through, I can't remember exactly when. I know Nick Bollettieri interviewed me and about it, and it was I didn't hear anything anymore, so my senses became very acute. That I just saw the ball leaving my brother's racket, coming toward me, and then going back, and me, kind of like a bounce hit, like inner game Tim Galway, and a rhythm. But then everything got dark around me, and like you're in a tunnel. And then it was kind of like more of a visual tunnel, and it was dark everywhere, even though the lights were the same. They didn't dim or anything. And that was, I would say, I don't know, maybe 20,000 shots, something like that. But yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which now I tried to figure out how I did it. And I coach, 1 is when my brother hits the ball, 2 is the bounce on my side, and 3 is the hit. And then a come on. And then 1, 2, 3, and then hit, and then come on under my breath. And the come on was, so I think I did 15,000 come ons because I needed that extra push, believe it or not, that early. But Ed, what about you?
Yeah, I would echo that. And for me, being in a flow state is not only being aware, hyper aware, and flexible to the surroundings. An example would be, people say you're unconscious, you're playing out of your mind, right? What does that mean? And so there's a state of subconscious, a state of awareness, but executing almost like you're outside of your body type of experience. But when Angela hit a let cord at past 11,000 marks, meaning the point of no return, I immediately triggered into a flexible reaction to get the let cord before it bounced twice, right? And then recovered from that. So that was incredibly mentally difficult to task switch that quickly after rallying for 11,000. So that was after the 7-hour mark, let's say, and so I feel like a state of flow also creates a state of hyper awareness that you can react and change your course and things. Otherwise, it's quite repetitive. There's a certain rhythm. There's a certain harmony between every shot. It's like a dance. It's like a macro game that every part of the rally is a part of that inner game. And yeah, that's how I describe it. And the other thing I would point out, that like the notion of the yin and yang kind of situation would be like when he found his second wind in his zone after 25,000, and I didn't. I had the opposite effect, that he was able to hit the ball directly to me, so I didn't have to move. That requires interdependence, right? So it's not independence, but it's not dependence.
Yeah.
It's interdependent. I depend on him, and he depends on me.
Yeah, and sorry, Al, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah. What I was gonna ask is kind of building on that topic of flow state. Would you say your first, I'll say 5,000 because this is such a large number, but would you say the first 5,000 was more challenging than the last 5,000? Or how would you compare the start to the finish?
Well, I would say I started with a serve, so getting the serve in was important.
Yeah.
I don't know if the first one was the most challenging, but the most unique because there's only one first and one last.
How about that first block? Like, would you say that first couple thousand volleys, you were more anxious, right? You were more worried about the outcome or even thinking about the fact that it was going to take you 14 hours. But then, like you said, when you got to 20,000, was that last 5,000 just full flow state? Like you didn't even know when you got to 25. Someone had to tell you at 25. Like, is that kind of how it built throughout the stretch?
Well, this particular one was baseline to baseline, so there was a bounce.
Yep.
The block was with pickleball and with the volley one, the 30,576 volley one. But if you consider a ground stroke a block, the first time that it's actually hitting the strings off the bounce, then it takes a few hundred to find the rhythm of that day.
Yeah.
Because you have a certain number of hours of sleep. There was media interviews there that we weren't unaware of that happened for 30 minutes prior to the start. We had to get everything set with the fire marshal and the auction items. So, it was hard running a huge charity event. And oh, by the way, being the two men in the arena. So the beginning, you create the rhythm of that day based on what is happening. And then you listen to your body and your mind and all of that. Then I would say you settle into that rhythm. But then what disrupted the rhythm, there was a couple things, but the let cord was one of the biggest ones. And Ripley's, even, believe it or not, when they published our record in there, they even said that, after almost 12,000 shots that I clipped the net and Etere saved the day. I think they edited out that, I'm a bonehead and could have lost, the whole record. I think they took that out, but they left in that Etere saved the day. So, I'm glad my ineptness didn't cost us the rally. But what about you? There were some other scares.
Yeah. I would like to know more about with what he felt like, not only in that moment of that let cord, because he described him being able to react fairly quickly because of the flow state he was in, but like what really were those moments of just beyond adrenaline, right? You had to react quickly and then try and dive back into flow state. Like what were those edgy moments for you at?
Yeah, I think I'll share an insight actually upon reflection.
Yeah.
The reason why I was ready, because believe it or not, then when for the volley record, when I did a step back and hit the volley into the net for our second world record, I think here's the key insight, that when Angelo hit the let cord, we were both at elevated awareness because he wanted to take a bite of his power bar. And we had pre-rehearsed 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then a lobbing back and forth situation so that he would have time to grab it with his left hand, get back to the court, take a munch, and I would be able to, return those lobs, so that when he overcompensated and then hit the let cord, right, we were in a state of heightened awareness. So I think that was the difference between that make and the miss that I hit into the net years later. So I think otherwise your body just does the same routine no matter what. And if you're mentally fatigued, it actually could be difficult to, make a split-second decision on changing a pattern.
So building on that a little bit, because there's something in there that was key, and you talked about preparing for it, right? Did you prepare for other miscellaneous, unpredictable moments leading up to this event? Like even preparing for a possible let cord, even preparing for having to possibly restart? Like what did that preparation process look like?
I'll take that one. I came up with the Elvis principle. I talk about this in my book Tenacity, but
yeah.
I would say prepared for different situations for the first world record, but for the second world record, we were more specific in not only preparing, but pre-accepting that things will be distracting and accepting that was going to be part of the story and part of the norm. And I know there's this big debate of, is Elvis still alive or not? For the big music followers, they want him to still be alive. They think they've spotted him. And so I remember in a practice with one of the players I coached, and then with practicing, I had said, I come up with this Elvis principle. I don't care if in the corner of my eye, Elvis walks in the room. I would say, as I'm volleying, there's Elvis. That's nice. Stay focused. In other words, not trying to use energy to block out that I might be seeing something extraordinary, but rather accepting that is what it is, and it doesn't matter. I'm focused on the goal.
A reference that I have too, which is key to that, and then I'll let Ed comment too on what he felt. But have you ever seen the movie The Matrix?
Oh yeah.
So in the scene when they pull Neo in, they talk about the lady in the red dress, right? And it's the same concept. It's like if you get distracted by the lady in the red dress, you're ultimately missing everything else that's going on, and you're ultimately not focused on the task at hand. So I think that is a great breakdown, right?
Yeah.
And preparing for that, like we talk about consistently, is it's not necessarily manifesting the fact that you're going to lose or that you're going to mess up, but it's understanding that there may be things that come into play that are unpredictable, right? That are outside of your control. And I think that is really the key part in what you just said. Ed, though, I want to hear what your side of the preparation story is too.
Ed, so I talked about the Elvis principle for the second world record, but as far as preparing for distractions and things that could go wrong, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think we had a lob plan to give ourselves time to react and clear the net, right? So that's one preparation for the unprepared, if you will. But I think there's only certain number of circumstances that you can prepare for. So having a mindset of acceptance that there'll be things that we are not prepared for that we have to accept and react to on the fly. So I think part of it, a big part, 80%, is thinking through and proper planning and preparation, and the lessons learned from our failed attempt in 2007 that we applied in 2008. So it's having those rehearsed mentally, and so that you're prepared. So I don't want to underestimate preparation and practice in any way. In fact, it's essential. But there's only a finite number of things you can contemplate and prepare for, and then for the infinite number of other things that you cannot, being able to react and accept them in the fly.
So I think that is spot on. Absolutely spot on. Because I think even when, I started learning from Angelo and I started implementing these practices, which have been super impactful, I think I did get a little bit lost in trying to prepare for way too many outcomes. And I think the practice, like you just talked about, of ultimately acceptance is key. Because if you get lost in trying to prepare for every single outcome, when an outcome occurs now that you didn't predict, you're like, what the hell? I did all this preparing for all these outcomes. I didn't put this one in the books. And then you're way caught off guard. So I think that has been a key piece moving forward for even me, is accepting the fact that something can occur that I'm unprepared for. Something in there that you did say that I want to build on and dive into is you did have a couple failed attempts in 2007. The main piece that I want to tackle, because this is something that I struggled with heavily myself and still do, is like, when you do fail, how do you react afterwards? Like, what was the process you went through? How did you think? How did you then even go say, we're going to go do this again? We're going to go try this again. Because doing that once is mentally grinding, right? And then ultimately, at the end of the day, not getting the result you want, going back out there and saying, we're going to get this done again. After that failure, like, take me through exactly what you guys thought and went through in 2007.
Well, I know.
You want to go first?
Yeah, Etere says that I'm the eternal optimist, which I don't always feel that way, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
And we had lack of, it was poor preparation. We tried to do too much. So the first record we ran, all of the teaching clinics ourselves, donated our time, taught 6 hours of clinics on our feet, did the auction items, whatever, ran the whole event. And oh, by the way, do a doubles exhibition with one of the world's top players. He was number 7 in the world and also a head pro at the club at the time, against my brother and I. Had a very close match. It was really fun. After the exhibition at about 4:30 p.m. Now why don't we try, now that we're exhausted, why don't we try to set a world record? That's never been done before. So it was kind of like poor planning. And after 2,000 shots, my brother missed in the net. We both come up to the net, and I said to him sarcastically, it had to be the bottom of the net, you know? And so then we quickly took a bathroom break and came back. There was no doubt, because we only had 2,000 or so shots. There was no doubt we're going to try again, because the record was 24,696. And we went right back at it, because the mission wasn't accomplished yet. And we may have still gone at it a third time, but according to the rules of Guinness World Records, when you declare that you're going to set a world record on that day, it doesn't matter if you're sick, you have COVID, you're in the hospital, that day comes and goes. If you do not set the record on that day, there is no excuse. So the next miss, to even out my brother, not that I did it intentionally, but I fell asleep on my feet and misjudged the depth of the ball. I didn't realize that when you're sleeping, it's very difficult to have depth perception, but I could tell you that it is. So I misjudged the depth. And if you see in the video, I then leaned forward heavily to try to get the ball, and I didn't hit it squarely enough. So I hit probably a 2 on it, not a 3. And he knows what I mean. It hit the top of the net. At least mine was the top of the net. But so, and that was the next day. It was 5:09 a.m. So we were not allowed to have a third attempt. Now, our bodies probably wouldn't cooperate with a third attempt and doing an all-nighter, but that was off the table. So right away, without hesitation, we're going to do this again next year. Same time frame next year. That was a foregone conclusion, at least in my mind. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'm the one who missed first after 2 hours in 2007. And it was very memorable because I was in a flow state prior to, I was in that unconscious, subconscious zone until I had a thought that was, my thought was, this is going to be easy. Let me observe my technique. And being self-aware of my technique, I hit that forehand in the net. So the lesson learned was, when you are competent enough to physically master a skill, you should not be conscious or aware of it. You just let it do it. Let it go. Right? So that was one. And the other is, how did then I deal with the guilt that I'm the one who missed? Like, you're absolutely right, Alec, on the notion that you tend to get angry and frustrated when there's an outcome either that you didn't expect, or a situation that, hey, wait, you weren't supposed to do that. That wasn't supposed to happen. And then it's really hard mentally to get back to it. People lose it. They get mad. Right? And the key for me to recover from that error was that failure, was acceptance. But even if it wasn't acceptance, right, because I still haven't accepted my miss in 2015, I still live with that. But I'm able to deal with it, maybe not to fully accept it, because after the miss, we took bio breaks, and then we went back at it. And I will quote the basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who said that, and the reason why I'll quote him is for two reasons. One, great basketball player. Two, my wife's family came to know him in Thanasis in Greece before he came to the U.S. to play basketball. And so I've met Thanasis personally when he was in the D League for the Knicks. And Giannis, when he won his first championship, he had a quote which was very memorable, and it was, when you focus on your past, that's your ego. When you focus on your future, that's your pride. When you focus on the present, that's humility. And so I think that quote encapsulates being present. Because if I was harboring the miss occurred in the past. So by definition, I'm not being present. So that's why the notion of one shot at a time, and that's the past. You can't change the past. The past is the past. You can only focus on the present. You can't even predict the future. So that's not being present. If you're too hopeful to the finish line, that you're not present. You got to always bring yourself back to being present. And I think for me, that was the secret of my success.
I love that. And I think we can honestly unpack an entire episode just on that one quote that you just said. But I think it is important to consistently live in the present. And the way that you phrased that, and the reference to that quote was amazing, because even like working with Ange, right? He's always like, don't focus on the outcome. Don't focus on the outcome, right? And I think that's the exact point of what you're getting at, is if you're living in every single point, you are giving your full effort to every single point. And therefore, the outcome is just going to be what it is. But if you know you're giving your effort in every single point, what do you have to be frustrated about? And the other...
And by definition, Alec, the outcome is future.
Yeah, you're right.
Like the point, the rally, and even within the point, it's the actual shot, every shot at a time, that is being fully present. So the process is being present, but the outcome is future state. And a miss or a failure is the past. So if you can kind of, So I've been coached by Angelo too, so.
Have you found, so this is something recently that I've been doing, it to summarize it, I've been having a lot more fun on the court, right? Angela and I just talked about it. And have you found that comes with just being present with what you're doing? Like enjoying the fact that this is what you're allocating your time to at that moment, rather than, like you said, thinking about the future or the past. I've personally found that I've just had so much fun doing things by living point to point, by living in what I am doing in front of me. I was wondering if you guys found the same thing, because I see you guys having a hell of a lot of fun out there too when you guys are playing together. So I'm curious if that relates heavily to you guys as well.
For me, it's not only telling yourself to stay present, but actually doing it. And the actually doing it is my biggest challenge, because I feel like I'm an achiever mindset. I always want to be doing the next thing. I'm not doing enough. It wasn't good enough. I got to get better with everything. And then that leaves me preoccupied with things that may be urgent but not important.
Yeah.
And it's important to be present, because you can't be present after the fact. And you can't, or at least it's very difficult to not enjoy something during it and then have an epiphany after that you actually enjoyed it, because that's probably not possible or not genuine. So my brother reminds me when he's not having fun, or he doesn't think I'm having fun, or this is not fun. And that then I know is the telltale sign that I'm being preoccupied. So for me, it's just being present. Nothing is perfect. Everything else can wait. And yeah, it's okay to be fully present.
I love that.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the example Angela always shares with me and with the students is, if you played an unbelievable match and it was rally scoring, it was tie 10-10 in the third, and you hit a ball and it hits the leg cord and it falls over to your side and you lose the match, how do you feel? And then,
do you want me to say it?
Are you happy?
Yeah.
Are you sad?
Yeah. How would you feel, Al?
Right.
How would you feel if that happened to you?
Happy, but unsatisfied.
If it fell on the other side, I would say
hitting the ball. Yeah. On the other side of it, I would have told you not to cut you off at.
Yeah.
But I would say when I started, I would have been super frustrated. Been like, what the F? Why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
And I think the new perspective is like, it's outside of your control. I cannot control that element as much as I want to, as fast as I can get. I cannot cover that much court when that is something that I can't prepare for. Right?
Yep. When the leg cord goes against you.
Ed, did you have any?
That's the thing. Like, what if? I thought about this recently. What if Angelo's leg cord at 11,000 in 2008 did not go over?
I don't think we would be even a footnote in history. I don't think we would even be a footnote on the Wikipedia about us,
Oh my God.
We certainly we would not have made the Ripleys and Guinness World Record books, that's for sure.
Like we both agreed it was a point of no return. It was after 7 hours. It would just be too much to go again. So I think what we would have done was lessons learned, documented them all, and try again in 2009. That's probably what we would have done. It probably would have broken in 2009, but it could just change the trajectory of things, right? And
yeah.
So Yeah. So you summarized it perfectly, Alec. And the hard part is actually believing and living that and feeling that, because it takes such a level of maturity to do. Even me, like if it goes over, then it feels like the ends justify the means. Meaning, I played an awesome match and we got the lucky shot, let court, and won. That feels super great. So I'm happy and satisfied, right? But so it is hard to be happy and satisfied, versus happy and unsatisfied versus satisfied and unhappy, right? I mean, those are the four outcomes. You can be unhappy and unsatisfied.
Yep.
Meaning you didn't perform well in the present and the outcome wasn't what you wanted.
Yep.
You could be happy and satisfied. The outcome went the way you wanted and your process was great. You could be happy and unsatisfied. So you got lucky, but you didn't perform well. And then you could be unhappy and satisfied, meaning the outcome wasn't what you wanted, but your process was good. Four quadrants.
Yeah, and Jared's doubles partner, Alex's doubles partner, Jared, I got to give a shout out to him. He always cracks me up because when he gets a leg court and it goes his way, and I say happy, not satisfied, he corrects me and he says very satisfied. Happy and very satisfied. And I never have actually asked him, does he really mean that? Or is he just busting my chops and making me laugh? But hey, Jared, hope you're well.
So I guess a question to build off that is, in Jared's retrospect, if he's aiming super close to the net cord, is it then happy and satisfied because that was what he was trying to do, was aim as close to it as possible?
So it's so interesting. I never shared this before. Maybe I told you that, but there was a super player I was playing against, like 10 times better than me in singles. And I was purposely aiming to try to hit the top of the net to make the ball be more distracting. And I hit so many shots, winners like that. And he was getting so mad. He goes, another one. And so I don't know. I don't know if I can't really remember if I was happy and satisfied or happy and not satisfied. But you're right. If it was purposeful intent, and the result matched your intent, then you have every right to be satisfied.
So we'll have to ask Jared about it and see what his intentions are for sure.
Yes, I would love that.
Something that Et said that I want to go back to, which I think was important. So he gave the hypothetical on, and this is what led into this, that let's say it didn't go over. Let's say the ball hit and then fell back on your side and you never made it over the net.
Yeah.
Ed immediately said we would have went back out there and tried in 2009. My question to you is, do you believe that is because, and I know that me knowing you and Ed, you would have did it year after year until you did it.
Yeah.
Do you believe that's because your purpose in doing it was that much greater than the physical achievement yourself, why you were doing it in the first place? Do you believe that's what would have made you go year after year after year after year until you got that done?
Well, I would say not only much greater, but the only reason.
Yeah.
The singular reason was to honor Scott and his legacy, period. And we were going to do that, and it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It was a foregone conclusion of we were going to do it. It wasn't if, but when are we going to do it? And hopefully it won't take us too many attempts, too many years. But the purpose becomes your singular focus and the singular reason why you do it. That's why it's called a purpose. Everything else is ancillary. It's not that it's not important, but it's ancillary. And it took us many years to even have a driving purpose such as that. But when you lose someone that really supports you and believes in you, you lose a part of yourself. And to get that part of yourself is to build a legacy piece.
I could not agree more. And I think the reason I asked that is because we've chatted about this. And I think that was a big mindset shift for me as well is, and this is also detaching for the outcomes. So this is where it kind of comes full circle a little bit, is when I started building the Fail First project, it now became about, I want to be the example, right? I want to be a proven tactic that says you could start with no background in anything. You can go learn something incredibly. You could pour your heart and soul into it and be successful at it. Now, everybody's definition of success is a little bit different.
Yep.
However, ultimately, at the end of the day, you can pretty much accomplish anything that you set your mind to. And I think that's the narrative also with what you guys achieved with the world record. But it comes to the fact that you were doing it for something beyond just a record. Or for me, it's like beyond just winning pro matches in pickleball. It is the fact that I know I'm doing this because at the end of the day, I want young athletes and then all athletes to know that they can go out there and do the same. And with building that narrative, it's like, I know I have so much purpose beyond this match that I can go out there, have a good time, play with confidence. I know we can get more detailed into confidence, but play with confidence while enjoying the process, because I know the process is the mission that I'm eventually going to pass down to other people, right? And be a mentor for others. So I just wanted to really drive home how important purpose is, and really what would have, as you just mentioned, forced you to do it year after year after year after year until you got it done. And the same reason why for me with pickleball, I know I'm going to do it year after year after year after year, regardless of the actual outcome, because I know the purpose is greater than that. And I think that's really important to emphasize.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you very much for sticking with us on this call today. I know you were the special guest, but I think it was really important actually to have you today and have what you guys actually went through together that translates to not only pickleball, but partnerships across sports. So I think that's really important to see how you guys navigated it together. The last piece, you're welcome to stay on, is that one of my good friends, we've decided, is going to leave us a random question that we do not know what it is at the end of these episodes.
Okay.
So I just opened it up, and here's what it says. And I have no idea if it relates to what we already talked to, but I'm going to tell you anyways. So the question is, from an outside perspective, when you see a coach who knows the game of pickleball inside and out, but their athletes are plateauing, what do you think the coach is missing? What makes you think that?
I think empathy. Every player is different than a coach, and the player's experiences and skills are different. So I think it's going back to the player and asking the why question. Why are you doing this? And usually you have to ask the question at least 3 times before you get the true answer. And then once you find out the why, then you can kind of restart from there. But a lot of the times it's the person's purpose or the why. It's not what you coach necessarily, but it's how you coach it, or both of you being on the same page. I had a pickleball lesson recently, and we sat on the couch the full hour. We never touched a ball or a paddle. And it's just going with the flow of what the athlete needs at that point and why they need it. And I can't remember, what was the second part of that question? Did I answer it entirely?
I think you answered it fully. So I'll re-say it and then I'll comment on what you said. The full question again was, from an outside perspective, when you see a coach who knows the game of pickleball inside and out, but their athletes are plateauing, what do you think the coach is missing?
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because I think what that rolls into really with tenacity too, Ange, is that your mental game is really the foundation of everything else, right? Because at the end of the day, if that is not strong, your ability to develop other things is going to be super challenging, right? Because even let's say you're rolling it into technical skills that you need to develop. Well, if you're trying to do something for the first time that you have no idea how to do, frustration is going to settle in, right? But ultimately, you're going to end up having to react to that frustration a certain way. And if those mental building blocks, that mental foundation is that not there, what makes you think day in and day out you're going to come try it over and over again, right? That frustration may get so high that you step away. So I think something that you employ, and why, even like you said, you had a pickleball lesson recently and you just sat on the couch. Like, would you agree that had to do with every piece of the mental foundation that needs to be built? Like, what occurred in that lesson where you guys really sat on the couch? Not to go into too much detail, but overall.
Well, first I removed all sharp objects. Just kidding. But I would say it's a combination of your heart and your mind.
Yeah.
I love
that.
Your mind is more, because I don't believe you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. I don't believe in that. I used to. I believe that you can accomplish anything you put your heart and your mind to. And the heart is more your intangible purpose of why you were born. And, and your mind is more pickleball IQ, or whatever sport you play. It's the IQ, dealing with emotions, dealing with your thoughts. But then there's the heart piece. And if you put them together, then you're unstoppable.
I don't have many words because all I could do is say yes, right? And I think that really relates to when we just defined purpose. You need it. You need it. I think that's what ultimately drives you year after year after year after year. It's very easy to get worn out when you don't know you're working for something greater. And I think that I've even seen that, right? So moving from like an engineering career to what I'm doing now is I knew I had the work ethic to put the work in, but the point I got to was like I was running on a wheel with no direction or reason to be there besides a paycheck at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So I think now off the pickleball court too, it's what drives me day in and day out to get out of bed, get moving, get done what I need to, and do that every single day, even if it's super hard, right? It's not that I haven't hard days. I've had times where I stepped on the court with you, right? And I was like, Ange, having a really tough day today, just going to grind through it.
Yeah.
Try to keep it simple for me, right? Like, it's not that you're not going to have those days, but what makes me go back out there again and again and again is the fact that it is the heart and mind that are into it. But I know, Ange, we're about at 12:10 now. I think there's so much value in what we just discussed and moving forward. And Ed, I want to thank you heavily for being on the call with us. Are you still there?
Yeah, he had to drop off. He had a meeting, but
either way, I want to thank him because I think that was a great surprise. I think there's so much value in that, right?
Absolutely.
And some of the frameworks that he used, I would employ people to go back and re-listen to a couple times, especially when we talked about happy and unsatisfied, or happy and satisfied. I think those are great relationships to take in any piece of life, and how to really go about navigating what you talk about is like controlling the controllables.
Yeah.
I think that's a major piece. And I think the overall narrative here is moving through life with purpose.
And I would love to end with one quote from Mark Twain. I have it in my book tonight.
Yeah.
But it's the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you discover the reason why.
Write that down. I will be writing that down myself. I think that is so powerful. Something that I want to comment on there. and we could dive into this more, is that if you don't know your purpose, right? Because I think we've talked about that too, is keep taking action, doing things that you enjoy, that you love. And that's going to inevitably lead you down a right path. And I will say eventually, right? I think even your prior history, and we will leave that for another day, but there's sometimes you go down a path that you realize is not your path, but you would have never known that if you didn't start, right? And sometimes you got to pivot. So either way, Angelo, thank you for your time today.
Thank
I'm
you.
so excited to keep giving this knowledge out together. I think there's going to be so much value to it. And really, until next time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ange. I'll see you.